Next, I'm going to show you how to use the one more setting called the directory listing allowed without authentication. So as the name implies, so we can see the contents of this entire card without any authentication. So if I click on Applications tab and Get IDs, so you can see here all the applications in the card are listed. So what if we want to protect that? So that's what I do um, after I finish the project or after we personalize the card. We don't want the end user to see the applications, so we always change the card setting so that nobody can say what's in the card. So to do that, so you have to remove this and you have to save it, but keep in mind, before we change the setting we have to authenticate. In other words, change this setting is possible only after a successful authentication with the master key. So I'm going to authenticate. We still have the key, which is the default zeros. We have not changed that yet. And if you click on the read setting, this is our current setting. In the last videos, we prevented creating application without auth. So this time I'm going to remove this and change setting. So as you can see here, the change setting has been returned to the card, and I'm going to reselect. So keep in mind, at this stage the card is in the authenticated state. That means we have already done this authentication using the default key. Whenever you select the card again, the master file again, the authentication state is reset. That means the card will go to a state where it is not authenticated. So I've reselected again, or if you want to try all over again, I can close it, take the card, put the card again, select, and obviously the card starts without any authentication. So you can read the setting. Oh yeah, so you can't read the setting as well. So I think that's something we need to understand here. I'm going to mention this later, why the read setting is not possible, because it's something to do with what we did just now, the directory listing without auth. So let's go to or select this again, so we know that we are in the right state. So go to the applications and click get application IDs. You can see there is an error message. So error says some kind of a authentication failure, or it says it's not allowed at this state. So now we cannot get the listing of the card. You cannot list out the folders. So in order to do that, we have to first authenticate. So authenticate and go back to the applications, and now if I click on get IDs, you can see that all applications are visible. So what we have learned is, so this settings controls whether the free access to direct listing is possible or not. So because I'm already authenticated, I can now click on the read setting, and this is what the state of the key setting is. So that's it. Probably the next thing will be the other two settings, which are very critical, and I'm going to show them in a bit. So next we're going to see how to use the other two settings. One is changing the key, and other one is the key setting itself. You can prevent somebody from changing. So before we do that, I'm going to show you how to change the key. So I'm going to change the keys to C0 to CF, and keep in mind, in order to change the key you must first authenticate. So my default keys or my key is still all zeros, so first authenticate, and I'm going to change. So as you can see here, I have copied the values as a current key, And it's very common that we forget the keys, and these cards are very expensive. So what I have done is, uh, you're all aware of this file structure. Every tag I create a folder here, and all applications you create create a folder as well. So I've added a file called keys.txt file. So if you double click, it will always show you your current keys, so you don't have to worry about forgetting your keys. So we know now how to change the key. So to check that, probably you can, I'm going to start all over again. So as you can see here, as soon as you connect, I automatically read the content of that file keys and show here. So authenticate, so that's fine, authentication is done. So what if I don't want my users to change this key anymore? So I can remove the tick, and I'm going to save these settings. So it says now keys are changed, so setting is changed. Now I have a situation here where according to this I should not be able to change the keys anymore. So let's give a try and see what happens. So I'm going to connect, so I'm going to authenticate. Authentication is fine. So let's try to change it back to zeros. So if you hit this button called set zeros, it's just a quick way of typing 16 zeros. So now if I click on change, so if authenticated, just also give a try, read this. So my settings are just like the way we wanted. Try to change the key. It says the current configuration does not allow you to do some request command. So this shows I cannot change the key. So even with authentication I cannot change the key. Now the only way to change the key is I have to set this back to 1 again, or tick this, and I have to change the setting. So let's try to authenticate first again. So I'm going to tick this and change the setting. So now probably I can change the key. So now you can see that I can change it. So this bit here, or this flag, controls whether you can change this master key or not. So let's go back and change it again. So before I do that, let's bring back that key. So it's this, authenticate, change. I'm able to change it. Now after I change the key, I'm going to make it so that nobody can change. So change the setting. So that's it. Oh, it says current authentication not allowed. Probably I have to first authenticate. Let's try this again. So connect, authenticate, read. Yeah, so I have to probably once I change authenticate again, and oh, it's already there now. It's set. Okay, so that is how you change the key. And you can also, sorry, we want to prevent that. Okay, remove that and change the setting. Okay, so now we're in a situation where you cannot change this any further. So the last flag we are going to discuss here is the key setting. So this flag says key setting changeable with authentication. So the key setting here means all these 4 flags. So is it changeable or not changeable? You have to be very careful with this setting, because once I untake this and change the setting, this is completely frozen. You can never ever undo this thing. So if I do that, if I try now, I'm going to lose this tag. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I already have a tag which is which I have done it. So I'm going to show. So keep in mind, if this is unticked, you can never make any more changes. Say for example, you can't change the keys, or you cannot delete, or you can't have a free application creation or deletion, so on. So I already have a tag here, so which have returned its key settings locked, and I can read. Yeah, I can read it. So what I've done is I've maintained these tags, because if I remove this flag, you cannot read also authenticate. Looks like I still have the same default keys, and the key setting changeable has been removed. So let's try to authenticate, and let us try to change this thing and see what happens. So somebody assume that I want to make it unticked, so change the keys. So it says you can't do it. So this is like, the card is completely frozen. And the last thing in this hands-on 3 is about the formatting the tag. So I had this feature in the earlier version also, but it is moved from somewhere from applications to here. This you can use to clean up, or okay, you can clean the tag. So what you have to keep in mind here is, see, whenever you delete an application, the memory is not freed, it's still occupied. So in order to make, there's no way as of now you can reclaim the memory of a single deleted application. I don't know whether it's going to happen, in the next version of MIFA Desfire. So as of now, if I format it, okay, I'm going to lose everything. Now in order to format, you must authenticate first. So I know now the key is 0. First authenticate it, that's it. Or you can try without authentication. Let's try. What is that you get? So if I click on format, it says it's nothing. It says, this is my own message, so I know you cannot format it. It says please first select and authenticate MF. Okay, so I'm going to select and authenticate, then I'm going to give format. So the format is done. So let us try. There's something you have to keep in mind. So even after formatting, you have to keep in mind the key values are not changed. So if the key is something else, it will not be 0. And as well as the key set, let's try to get the key settings here. So you can see that I have got a formatted tag. So I'm trying to read the settings. Even now the settings have the old values before formatting, so probably that's what you get. So this is something, it's part of the MIFA Desfire feature. So one way it's good for us, as a developer, it's good, because we don't want the users to change the settings. So finally, setting or changing the keys and changing the key setting is a very interesting thing, but as a developer, you have to be a bit careful with the way things work after the key is changed and authentication. I'm going to show you a few of my tags, what has happened to them. So I'm going to get this. It says, if you can see message, the pick was disabled by unrecoverable error. It is something I was learning, how to do authentication, and this is because of that. I got one more tag here. So if you go and say get IDs, again this also says this pick is unrecoverable. So you have to be very careful when you create a software, and you should know exactly what you're doing.